I woke up with the worst headache of my life in a bed that wasn't mine, wearing a red silk robe I'd never bought, with a massive ruby and diamond ring on my left hand. Panic hit immediately. I sat up too fast, making the room spin, and tried to piece together the last 48 hours. My firm's conference in Monaco, networking drinks, a club overlooking the harbor, dancing, more drinks, and then nothing. Complete blackout. If you want to know how a corporate lawyer ends up trapped on a Russian mafia boss's super yacht with no memory and no escape, keep watching. This gets wild. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you might want to do that right now because you wouldn't want to miss out on any details. The ring caught the morning light. Pigeon blood red ruby, at least 5 carats, surrounded by brilliant cut diamonds in an intricate platinum setting. This wasn't costume jewelry. This was the kind of ring that cost more than my annual salary as a corporate lawyer. And that's saying something. The bedroom was equally intimidating. Massive, with circular porthole windows overlooking endless turquoise water, teak wood paneling that screamed old money, art on the walls that looked museum quality. This wasn't a hotel suite. This was someone's yacht. Someone's very expensive private yacht. I stumbled out of bed, still wearing the red silk robe. Where were my clothes from Monaco? And tried the door. Unlocked. The corridor beyond was even more impressive. Polished teak floors, crystal light fixtures, the kind of nautical luxury that made me feel like I'd accidentally wandered onto a billionaire's floating palace. Hello? My voice came out scratchy, throat dry from too much alcohol. Is anyone here? Good morning, Signora Volkov. A man appeared, middle-aged, professionally dressed in a crisp white steward's uniform. Mr. Volkov asked me to ensure you had everything you needed when you woke. How are you feeling? Signora Volkov? No. There's been a mistake. I'm Simone Evans. I don't know who Signora Volkov is, but it's not me. The steward's expression didn't change. Perhaps you should speak with Mr. Volkov. He's been waiting for you to wake. I'll let him know you're ready. Ready? Ready for what? I don't know any Mr. Volkov. I need to find my phone, contact my firm, figure out what happened in Monaco. Your phone is charging in the main salon. Your colleagues have been notified that you're safe. Mr. Volkov will explain everything. He gestured down the corridor. Please, follow me. I followed because I didn't know what else to do. My head was pounding. My memory was Swiss cheese. And I was apparently on a stranger's super yacht in the middle of the Mediterranean being called Signora Volkov. This had to be some elaborate mistake. Maybe someone from the conference had helped me when I was too drunk. Maybe this was a rescue, not whatever this felt like. The main salon was as luxurious as the rest of the yacht. And sitting on a leather sofa, reading a Russian newspaper with morning espresso, was a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a crime thriller. Dark hair, sharp Slavic features, shirtless, revealing a chest covered in intricate Russian prison tattoos, stars on his shoulders, a cathedral on his chest, symbols I recognized from true crime documentaries, expensive linen pants despite the early hour, and an air of controlled danger that made me stop in the doorway. He looked up and his dark eyes assessed me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. Simone, good, you're awake. How's your head? How do you know my name? Who are you? Why am I here? I stayed near the doorway, ready to run if necessary. And why is your steward calling me Signora Volkov? Because that's your name now, at least legally. He set down his newspaper and stood, tall, powerfully built, moving with the grace of someone comfortable with violence. I'm Maksim Volkov. And according to the Principality of Monaco, we got married 48 hours ago. You don't remember? The room tilted. That's not funny. I didn't get married. I was at a legal conference. We had networking events, yes, but I would never. Let me show you something. He pulled out a tablet, brought up a video, and turned the screen toward me. This is from the Monaco courthouse, 2 days ago, around midnight. The video showed me, definitely me, wearing a white cocktail dress I vaguely remembered packing. standing next to this man in what was clearly a Monaco civil ceremony. I was laughing, swaying slightly, clinging to his arm. The officiant was saying something in French about marriage and commitment. And then Video Me was kissing him enthusiastically while someone cheered in the background. No, that's not. I wouldn't. But it was clearly me. Drunk, happy, completely unaware of what I was doing. You were very enthusiastic about the whole thing, he said matter-of-factly. No humor in his tone. Kept saying you'd always wanted a destination wedding, that Monaco was romantic, that I was dangerously handsome. He paused. You also insisted on the ruby ring, said if you were getting married to a Russian, you wanted a ring that honored the tradition. Pigeon blood ruby like the Romanovs. I looked at the ring on my finger, the ring I'd apparently demanded while blackout drunk. This isn't real. I don't remember any of this. We can just get it annulled. It's not legal if I was too drunk to consent. Actually, Monaco law is quite permissive about intoxicated marriages. As long as you could stand and repeat the vows, which you clearly could in the video, the marriage is legal and binding. He crossed his arms, tattoos rippling. But you're right that we could get it annulled. That's actually why I brought you here. We need to discuss terms. Terms? What terms? I just want to undo this mistake and get back to Atlanta. Not a mistake. At least not entirely. His expression remained neutral. I needed to get married quickly, for business reasons. A legitimate American wife, specifically a corporate lawyer with no criminal record, provides certain advantages. You were drunk, willing, and perfect for my purposes, so I took advantage of the opportunity. The casual admission made my blood run cold. You're saying you deliberately married a drunk stranger for business reasons? That's not taking advantage of an opportunity. That's predatory. Call it what you want. The marriage is legal, and now I need you to stay married to me for the next 6 months. Publicly. Convincingly. In exchange, I'll compensate you generously and ensure the annulment happens smoothly once I no longer need the arrangement. You're insane. I'm not staying married to you. I don't even know you. You know my name. You know I'm wealthy. He gestured to the yacht around us, the kind of vessel that cost $50 million minimum. That's all you need to know for now. He pulled out a leather portfolio from a side table. This is the contract I had my lawyers prepare this morning while you were sleeping. It outlines the terms. You stay married to me for 6 months. Make public appearances as my wife. Convince anyone watching, investors, business partners, authorities, that we're a genuine couple. In return, you receive $50,000 a month, full access to a credit card for expenses, and a guaranteed annulment with no financial obligations on your part afterward. $50,000 a month? $300,000 for 6 months? That's more than I make in 3 years as a junior partner. Why? Why do you need a fake wife? What kind of business requires a sham marriage? The kind that's none of your concern. Your job is to be my wife publicly. Ask no questions about my business. And collect your compensation. Simple, straightforward, mutually beneficial. Except I don't benefit. I get dragged into whatever illegal enterprise you're running, risk my law license, lie to everyone I know, and essentially become a prop in your criminal operation. You're not a prop. You're an asset. There's a difference. He pushed the portfolio across the coffee table. Read the contract. It's all spelled out clearly. No physical intimacy required or expected. Separate cabins on the yacht. You're simply playing a role. I stared at the portfolio, then at him, then at the ring on my finger. And if I refuse, if I just walk off this yacht, go to the nearest police station and report you for whatever this is, then you'll discover that I have certain information about your law firm, specifically about the oligarch clients you've been handling, the money laundering, the offshore accounts, the SEC violations. His dark eyes held mine. If you refuse this arrangement, I release that information. Your firm collapses, you're disbarred, potentially prosecuted, your career, the one you spent 7 years building, ends. His words hit like a physical blow. You're blackmailing me. I prefer to think of it as negotiation. You have something I need. Legitimacy, an American legal background, a clean record. I have something you need. Silence about your firm's activities, and eventually, $300,000. He leaned forward. 6 months, Simone. That's all I'm asking. Play the role, take the money, and then we go our separate ways. Is that really so terrible compared to the alternative? I wanted to say yes. Yes, it was terrible. Being forced into a fake marriage with a criminal was basically kidnapping, but the truth was more complicated. I was a corporate lawyer drowning in student loans from Harvard Law. Living in a tiny Atlanta apartment. Watching my law school classmates make partner while I handled paperwork for oligarchs I didn't fully vet because the firm's senior partners said not to ask questions. $300,000 would change everything. Pay off my loans, give me savings, let me finally breathe financially. Maybe even start my own practice, free from firms that cut ethical corners. And what was the alternative? Fight this in court while he destroyed my career? Spend money I didn't have on lawyers? Face disbarment for something I barely participated in? I need to think about this. Take your time. You have 24 hours to decide. He stood, clearly ending the conversation. Your clothes from Monaco are being cleaned. I've had appropriate attire brought in for you. Your size, professional but suitable for yacht life. Feel free to explore the vessel. Order any food you want. The crew speaks English. Just don't attempt to leave until you've made your decision. So, I am a prisoner. You're a guest who needs time to think clearly. There's a difference. He moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Simone, I'm not trying to ruin your life. I'm offering you an opportunity most people would kill for. This kind of money for 6 months of pretending? Try to see it as the business arrangement it is, not a personal violation. After he left, I collapsed onto the leather sofa, staring at the ruby ring on my finger. How had my life gone from corporate law to being the fake wife of a man who is clearly a Russian mobster? Because you don't need a sham American marriage for legitimate business. You need it for covering criminal enterprises, laundering money, avoiding extradition, all the things those true crime podcasts taught me. My phone, which the steward had mentioned, was indeed charging on a side table. 2023 missed calls from my best friend Jasmine. Just 41 texts, all variations of where are you and are you okay, and increasingly panicked, call me now. I called Jasmine, my college roommate, and the only person who knew about my firm's ethical gray areas. Simone, oh my God, where the hell have you been? The firm said you missed your flight back from Monaco. We've been losing our minds. I'm okay. This is going to sound insane, but I think I got married 2 days ago. To a stranger, while blackout drunk. Silence, then. What? There's a ruby ring on my finger. A marriage certificate from Monaco, apparently. And a very intense Russian man claiming we got married at midnight. I don't remember any of it. Simone, that's not funny. I'm not joking. I woke up on his yacht, Jasmine. A literal super yacht in the Mediterranean. And he's saying we're legally married. And he wants me to stay married to him for 6 months for business reasons. And he'll pay me $300,000. More silence. Then, okay, I'm calling the embassy. Give me your location. I don't think that'll help. He has information about the firm, the oligarch accounts, the offshore structures. If I refuse, he destroys my career. If I agree, I get $300,000 and walk away clean in 6 months. That's blackmail, Simone. That's kidnapping. You can't seriously be considering this. $300,000, Jasmine. That's my student loans paid off. That's seed money for my own practice. That's finally being free from firms that make me ignore red flags because senior partners say so. It's also 6 months of lying to everyone, being married to a stranger, a criminal stranger, getting involved in God knows what kind of illegal operations. You're a lawyer, Simone. You can't risk your license on something like this. She was right. Of course she was right. This was insane, dangerous, potentially career-ending even if I agreed. But that ring on my finger was so beautiful. And the idea of being debt-free, of having actual financial freedom, was so tempting. I have 24 hours to decide. Can I call you back? Simone, I know it's crazy. Just Let me think about it. I'll call you soon. I promise. I hung up before she could argue more and spent the rest of the day exploring my floating prison. The yacht was as impressive as I'd initially thought. 6 guest cabins, a formal dining room, a library with legal texts in multiple languages, a gym, a hot tub on the upper deck, the kind of wealth I'd only seen in movies, or in the accounts of the oligarch clients my firm represented. And in what was clearly meant to be my cabin, I found an entire wardrobe of women's clothes in my exact size. Designer labels, expensive fabrics, everything from casual yacht wear to evening gowns suitable for Monaco casinos. Maksim had clearly prepared for this, had planned to trap some drunk American professional into marriage and had the infrastructure ready. That should have terrified me. Instead, I found myself trying on a dress, looking at myself in the mirror, imagining what 6 months of living like this would feel like. That evening, Maksim found me on the upper deck, watching the sunset over the Mediterranean. Have you made your decision? I have questions first, starting with, what kind of business requires a fake American wife? The kind that involves US investors who won't trust a known Russian operator without proof of stability and legitimacy. My family's shipping business is expanding into American ports. Certain people need assurance that I'm reformed, settled. A corporate lawyer wife provides that assurance. Shipping business. That's what you're calling it? Among other things. He sat on the deck chair beside me. Simone, I'm not going to lie to you. Some of what I do operates in gray areas. Some crosses lines, but you're not involved in any of that. You're simply my wife in public. The business, whatever it actually is, remains separate. Can you promise I won't be implicated if something goes wrong? That I won't end up arrested or targeted because of your activities? I can promise that you'll be kept completely separate from operations. You'll have bodyguards, discreet, but effective. As far as anyone outside my inner circle knows, you're exactly what you appear to be. A corporate lawyer who had a whirlwind romance with a Russian businessman and got married impulsively in Monaco. That's the story. That's all anyone will ever know. And after 6 months? Annulment. Divorce if necessary. You walk away with $300,000, clean. I provide references for any legal position you want. I'll say you were my personal counsel for international contracts. The gap in your resume looks like career advancement, not unemployment. What about my job? My firm will expect me back next week. You'll resign, cite personal reasons, which is true. You got married, need time to adjust to your new life. After 6 months, you get divorced, cite irreconcilable differences, and return to legal work with $300,000 in the bank and valuable international experience on your resume. He made it sound so reasonable, so simple. But nothing about this was simple. If I agree, and I'm not saying I am, what exactly does being your wife entail? Attend events with me, investor meetings in Monaco, parties in Cannes, dinners in Santorini. Act affectionate but professional. Hold my hand. Let me put my arm around you. Smile when people ask about our whirlwind romance. Essentially, sell the story that we fell in love at the legal conference and couldn't wait to get married. And in private? In private, we're colleagues. Polite, cordial. You have your cabin, I have mine. We coordinate our public story but otherwise maintain professional distance. This is a business arrangement, Simone, not a romance. I stood, needing to pace. This is insane. Everything about this is insane. I don't even know you. I don't know what you're really involved in, who your family is, what I'd actually be getting into. Then ask. Right now, before you decide, ask me anything you want to know. I stopped pacing, turned to face him, the Mediterranean sunset behind him making him look even more dangerous. Are you a criminal? Not gray areas, not complicated business. Are you an actual criminal? He was quiet for a long moment. Yes. By most legal definitions, yes. I'm involved in organized crime, Russian bratva. My family controls shipping routes, but not all of the cargo is legal. I've done things, violent things, to protect our interests. I'm not a good man, Simone, but I'm an honest one, at least with you. The admission should have sent me running. Instead, I found it oddly refreshing. At least he wasn't lying, wasn't pretending to be something he wasn't. Unlike my firm's senior partners who hid behind attorney-client privilege while laundering billions. Why me? You're clearly wealthy enough to hire someone for this. Why trap a drunk lawyer? Because you were perfect. American, corporate lawyer, clean record. No connections to my world. No complications. He moved closer. And because even drunk, you were sharp. Witty. Strong. Those qualities are useful for selling a love story to skeptical investors. So you took advantage of a drunk woman, and now you're trying to make it sound like a compliment. I took advantage of an opportunity. I'm not claiming it's noble, just practical. He was close enough now that I could smell his cologne. Expensive, subtle, bergamot and cedar. Simone, I need an answer. Are you doing this, or am I releasing the information about your firm? I looked at him, this dangerous, brutal man who'd trapped me in an impossible situation. Then I looked at the ruby ring on my finger. Thought about my crushing student loans, my tiny Atlanta apartment, my job at a firm that made me complicit in crimes I barely understood, my law school classmates who were all moving forward while I was stuck handling paperwork for oligarchs. $350,000. That's my price. $350,000 for 6 months. And I want it in writing that you'll provide not just references, but actual documentation that I served as your international legal counsel. Contracts, memos, proof that this gap in my resume was legitimate work, not unemployment. And I want protection. Real protection. Spelled out legally. If your world comes for me, you shield me completely. He studied me for a moment, something like respect flickering in his dark eyes. Then he nodded. $350,000 is steep. You're asking me to quit my career, lie to everyone I know, and marry a man who just admitted to organized crime. I think that's worth $350,000. Deal. I'll have the contract amended tonight. You'll sign tomorrow morning, and then we begin the performance. Just like that, I agree to an insane arrangement and we just move forward? Just like that. He extended his hand for a handshake, as if we were closing a normal business deal. Welcome to your new life, Mrs. Volkov. I stared at his outstretched hand, this impossible choice crystallizing into reality. 6 months, $350,000. And then freedom. I shook his hand, and the moment our palms connected, I felt the yacht's engines rumble to life beneath my feet. The vibration traveled up through the deck, a low, powerful hum that made my stomach drop. Where are we going? I pulled my hand back, suddenly aware that the sun had fully set and we were surrounded by darkness punctuated only by distant lights on the horizon. International waters, Maksim said simply, already walking back toward the salon. Can't have you changing your mind and running to Monaco police before you sign the amended contract. Once we're far enough out, jurisdiction becomes complicated. Wait, you're taking me further from land before I've even signed? He paused at the door, silhouetted against the warm light spilling from inside. You agreed to terms, Simone. The signing is a formality, unless you're planning to go back on our deal. I'm planning to make sure I have legal recourse if you decide to throw me overboard once we're in the middle of nowhere. A slight smile crossed his face. I like you. Most people would be too terrified to threaten me right now. You're either very brave or very stupid. I'm a lawyer. We're trained to negotiate even when we're losing. You're not losing. You're getting $350,000 for 6 months of playing dress-up. Most people would call that winning. He disappeared inside, leaving me alone on the deck. I gripped the railing, watching the distant lights of the Mediterranean coast grow smaller. The yacht was moving fast, cutting through dark water with the kind of speed that only serious money could buy. Above me, stars were appearing, more stars than I'd ever seen in Atlanta, unpolluted by city lights. It should have been beautiful. Instead, it felt like watching my escape routes disappear one by one. Senora Volkov? The steward appeared with a glass of red wine on a silver tray. Mr. Volkov thought you might need this. He also asked me to inform you that dinner will be served in 1 hour, after which the amended contract will be ready for your review. I took the wine because I needed something to do with my hands. The ruby ring caught the deck lights, throwing red refractions across the teak. How long until we're in international waters? Approximately 40 minutes, Signora. We're heading southeast, away from French and Italian territorial claims. He said it so casually, as if kidnapping was just another Tuesday. Will you be dining on deck or in the formal dining room? I'll eat wherever Maksim is. We have things to discuss. Of course. I'll inform Mr. Volkov. He disappeared back inside with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd served criminals long enough to know when not to ask questions. I sipped the wine. It was excellent, probably cost more than my monthly Atlanta rent, and tried to think like a lawyer instead of a kidnapping victim. What was my actual legal position here? Married in Monaco under questionable circumstances? Check. Potentially coerced into staying married via blackmail? Check. Currently being transported into international waters where no single country's laws clearly applied? Check. But I'd also negotiated terms, demanded compensation, basically structured this like a contract, which meant I had some leverage. If Maksim wanted this to look legitimate to his American investors, he needed me cooperative, not terrified. A wife who looked coerced wouldn't sell the love story. A wife who looked like she'd made a calculated business decision? That might actually work. I just had to survive long enough to collect. The distant lights finally disappeared completely, swallowed by darkness and distance. The yacht's engines shifted to a lower hum. Cruising speed instead of escape speed. We were out, beyond help. Beyond any jurisdiction that might care about one Black American lawyer who'd gotten drunk at the wrong conference and woken up married to the wrong man. My phone buzzed in my robe pocket. A text from Jasmine. Please tell me you're getting off that yacht. Please tell me you're not actually considering this. I looked at the message for a long moment, then typed, I'm considering it. I'll call you when I can explain better. I'm safe, I think. Her response came immediately. You think? Simone, this is insane. You're a lawyer. You know this is kidnapping. It's a negotiation that went badly. I'll be fine. 6 months, then I'm free. If you survive 6 months. I pocketed the phone without responding because she was right, and I didn't have a good answer. The steward reappeared to escort me to dinner, where Maksim would be waiting with a contract that would either save my career or destroy my life. Either way, there was no going back now. The yacht carried me deeper into the dark Mediterranean, away from everything I knew, toward a future I couldn't predict. Welcome to your new life, Mrs. Volkov, I thought bitterly, finishing the wine in one long swallow. The trap had closed. The formal dining room looked like something from a Billionaire's magazine spread. Mahogany table that could seat 12, emerald chandeliers swaying gently with the yacht's movement, place settings that probably cost more than my law school textbooks. Maksim sat at the head of the table, now wearing a black shirt that did nothing to hide the tattoos creeping up his neck. The amended contract lay beside his plate like a dinner guest. I sat across from him, and a chef I hadn't met materialized to serve courses I couldn't pronounce. Maksim pushed the contract toward me without preamble. Everything you demanded, $350,000 paid in monthly installments, legal documentation of your role as international counsel, protection clauses that specify my responsibility for your safety. Read it. My lawyer will be available via video call if you have questions. I pulled the contract closer, skimming with the speed that came from reviewing hundreds of corporate agreements. It was surprisingly fair. More fair than I'd expected from a man who'd blackmailed me into marriage. The protection clauses were particularly detailed, specifying everything from bodyguard assignments to evacuation protocols if threats emerged. You actually put in writing that you'll extract me from danger zones within 6 hours, I said, surprised. I need you alive and cooperative, not dead or traumatized, bad for business. He cut into something that looked like beef Wellington. Besides, you'll be more convincing as my devoted wife if you're not constantly terrified I'll feed you to sharks. Will you? Feed me to sharks if I don't perform well enough? Simone, if I wanted you dead, you wouldn't have woken up this morning. He said it so matter-of-factly that it took a moment to register as a threat and a reassurance simultaneously. You're an asset now. Assets get protected. I returned to the contract, finding the cover story section. It says here we met at the International Maritime Law Conference in Monaco. I gave a presentation on sanctions compliance that impressed you. We had drinks after, discovered intellectual chemistry, spent the next 2 days together, and decided to get married on impulse because we knew it was right. I looked up. People are actually going to believe this? Rich people believe what they want to believe about other rich people's eccentricities, and you'll make them believe it because you're smart enough to sell the story. He poured wine into both our glasses. Tomorrow, you meet Reina. She'll teach you everything else you need to know. Everything else? How to move in this world. What to wear when. How to read a room full of criminals pretending to be businessmen. How to smile when someone says something racist or misogynist without showing weakness. His dark eyes met mine. This isn't corporate law, Simone. This is the Bratva. Different rules. The next morning, Irina arrived like a storm system. A severe Russian woman in her 50s with iron gray hair and eyes that assessed me like I was livestock. She walked around me 3 times before speaking. You have good posture, good bone structure, but you move like an American. Too casual, too friendly. In Maksim's world, casual gets you killed. Her English was perfect, but heavily accented. We have 2 weeks before the first event in Monaco. I will teach you to be a Volkov wife. The lessons were brutal. How to enter a room so everyone noticed but no one felt threatened. How to drink vodka without flinching. How to deflect intrusive questions with charm instead of lawyer speak. How to stand beside Maksim in photographs so we looked connected but not desperate. Never show fear, Irina repeated constantly. The Bratva eats weakness. They will test you, crude jokes, deliberate insults, invasive questions. You smile, you deflect, you never, ever break. What if I do break? Then Maksim looks weak for choosing weak wife, and weak men in this world don't survive long. She adjusted the way I held a champagne glass. You are corporate lawyer, yes? You have already survived rooms full of men who underestimate you. This is same, but with more explicit danger. 2 weeks later, I stood beside Maksim in the Monaco casino, wearing a dress that cost more than my first car, and understood what Irina meant. The Russian oligarchs watching us weren't subtle. Their eyes traveled over me with the kind of assessment that made my skin crawl. But I smiled, leaned into Maksim when he put his arm around my waist, laughed at the right moments during their conversation about shipping routes and port access. Your wife is not what I expected, one oligarch said in Russian, apparently not realizing I'd spent 2 weeks learning key phrases. She's exactly what I needed, Maksim responded in English, his hand tightening on my waist. A warning or a claim, I couldn't tell. Beautiful, brilliant, and American. The perfect combination. Later on the yacht's deck, Maksim handed me a vodka. You did well tonight. Better than well. Victor actually seemed impressed, and he's suspicious of everyone. I was terrified the entire time. I know, but you didn't show it. That's what matters. He studied me in the moonlight. You're not just beautiful, Simone. You're dangerous. I like that. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it and his expression darkened. We have a problem. My mother's flying in tomorrow. She just found out about our marriage. He looked at me with something like concern. Katerina doesn't approve of surprises, or Americans. This is going to be ugly. Katerina Volkov arrived via helicopter the next afternoon, descending onto the yacht's upper deck like a conquering general. She wore all black, Chanel I recognized from my crash course in luxury brands, and carried herself with the kind of authority that made everyone on deck straighten their posture. Her hair was platinum blonde, severely styled, and her eyes were the same dark intensity as Maksim's, but colder, calculating. She ignored me completely at first, embracing Maksim and speaking rapid Russian that sounded like a combination of affection and interrogation. Then those cold eyes landed on me. So, this is the American. She switched to English, heavily accented. My son married a Black American lawyer? How very modern. How very, unexpected. The emphasis on black wasn't subtle. I felt Maksim tense beside me, but I smiled, extending my hand for a handshake she didn't take. Your son needed an American lawyer with a clean record and corporate credentials. I'm the best you'll find. Mrs. Volkov. I let my hand drop, maintaining eye contact. And apparently, I'm also your daughter-in-law now, so we should probably find a way to be civil. Katerina's eyebrows rose slightly. Bold. Maksim, she speaks to me like this? She speaks like someone who knows her value, Maksim said, his voice carrying an edge. Mama, Simone is my wife. You'll treat her with respect. Respect is earned, not given because of a drunken ceremony in Monaco. Katerina circled me slowly. Tell me, Simone, what does your family think of this marriage? I assume they were not invited either? My family thinks I'm handling an international contract negotiation for 6 months. They're proud of the career advancement. Lies already. This will be an interesting marriage. She finally took the seat Maksim offered. Tell me everything. How you met, why you married so quickly, what you know about my son's business. I sat across from her, channeling every difficult opposing counsel I'd ever faced. We met at the Maritime Law Conference. I was presenting on sanctions compliance. He approached me after. We had dinner, discovered we had intellectual chemistry. The rest happened fast. Too fast. No one marries this fast unless they're hiding something. Her eyes narrowed. What are you hiding, Simone? That I'm contractually obligated to pretend to love your son for $350,000? That seemed unwise to mention. I'm hiding the same thing most newlyweds hide, doubt about whether we made the right decision, but we're committed to making it work. Before Katerina could respond, another helicopter appeared on the horizon. Maksim cursed in Russian. Alexei, of course he would come uninvited. Your brother? My brother, my enforcer, and the most suspicious person you'll ever meet. If you thought Mama was difficult, you haven't seen anything yet. Alexei Volkov was younger than Maksim. Maybe early 30s, built like a fighter with scarred knuckles and a neck tattoo that disappeared under his collar. He greeted his brother with a bear hug, kissed his mother's cheeks, and then turned to me with open skepticism. So you're the American wife. Convenient timing, brother. Right when you need to impress the Boston investors. His English was nearly perfect, which somehow made his suspicion more cutting. Tell me, Simone Evans. Sorry, Volkov. What's your angle? Money? Green card for your family? Blackmail leverage? My angle is surviving 6 months married to your brother without anyone figuring out this is a business arrangement. But I went with, my angle is building a life with Maksim. I know it's fast. I know it looks suspicious, but sometimes people make impulsive decisions that turn out to be right. Impulsive. Alexei laughed. Our brother doesn't do impulsive. He plans everything 3 moves ahead. So either you're part of a plan we don't know about, or you're playing him somehow. Maksim's hand landed on my shoulder, possessive and protective. Enough, both of you. Simone is my wife. Question her again like this, and you'll answer to me. That evening, the yacht's dining room filled with members of the Bratva, a dozen Russian men in expensive suits with prison tattoos visible on their hands and necks. This was the real test, Irina had warned me. Impress Maksim's inner circle, or become a liability. They served traditional Russian food, blini, pelmeni, and vodka that could strip paint. Katerina watched me like a hawk as I navigated conversations in broken Russian, drank vodka without flinching when they toasted, and they toasted constantly, and refused to look away when the men made crude jokes testing my boundaries. Your wife has spine, Victor, the oligarch from Monaco, observed. Most American women would have run crying by now. Most American women aren't corporate lawyers who negotiate with oligarchs professionally, I responded, earning surprised laughter. By the end of dinner, even Katerina's expression had shifted from hostile to something approaching grudging respect. She approached me on the deck afterward. You did not break. You did not cry. You did not ask Maksim to protect you from crude men. She lit a cigarette, studying me through the smoke. You have spine. Good. You will need it in this family. Does that mean you approve? It means I won't actively try to destroy this marriage. Yet. She exhaled smoke into the night air. Welcome to the family, Simone. But understand, once you're in, there's no leaving. The Bratva doesn't do divorce. They do disappearances. 3 months into the arrangement, the yacht anchored off Santorini's caldera, the white cliffs glowing pink in the sunset. I stood on the upper deck watching tourists swarm Oya's famous viewpoints, envying their uncomplicated vacations while I lived in luxury that felt increasingly like a gilded cage. You're thinking too loud. Maksim appeared beside me with 2 glasses of champagne. I can hear your lawyer brain calculating escape routes from here. I'm thinking that those tourists up there have more freedom than I do, despite living on a $50 million yacht. Freedom is overrated. Most people don't know what to do with it anyway. He handed me the champagne. Besides, you don't look like a prisoner anymore. You look like you belong here. That's the problem. I'm starting to forget this isn't real. The admission hung between us, more honest than I'd intended. Over the past months, something had shifted. The late-night Russian lessons on deck, where he taught me phrases while I corrected his legal terminology. The investor meeting in Monaco, where I'd demolished their concerns about sanctions exposure with such precision that Victor had actually applauded. The shared meals, where we discovered a mutual cynicism about inherited wealth and the people who worshipped it. You demolished 3 Harvard-educated lawyers this morning, Maksim said, referencing the video conference with the Boston investors. Watching you dismantle their arguments about compliance risk was the most attractive thing I've seen in years. You find legal arguments attractive? Most men find that intimidating. Most men are idiots. He moved closer and I caught his scent. Bergamot and something darker, more dangerous. You're brilliant, Simone. Razor sharp. It's why I chose you. You chose me because I was drunk and convenient. That's what I told myself. His voice dropped lower. But the truth is, I've been watching you for 6 months. Since you presented at that maritime conference in Barcelona last year. You were wearing a navy suit, arguing with a panel of men twice your age about Russian sanction loopholes. And you were magnificent. The revelation hit like a physical blow. You've been planning this for 6 months? I've been wanting you for 6 months. The planning came later when I realized I needed an American wife and you happened to be in Monaco at the right time. He turned to face me fully. The blackmail was insurance, but I would have found another way to bind you to me regardless. That's deeply disturbing. That's honesty. His hand reached up, fingers brushing my jawline. This was supposed to be business, purely transactional. When did it become something else? When you taught me to say good morning in Russian and laughed at my accent. When you defended me to your mother. When you looked at me during that Monaco meeting like I'd just won a war instead of a negotiation. I didn't say any of that. Instead, I closed the distance between us and kissed him. It was the champagne's fault. Or Santorini's romantic sunset. Or 3 months of forced proximity with a man who was dangerous and brilliant and looked at me like I was the most fascinating creature he'd ever encountered. The kiss was supposed to be brief, testing, but his hand tangled in my hair and suddenly we were pressed against the railing. Champagne forgotten. The performance becoming desperately real. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. This complicates things. Everything about this has been complicated from the beginning. True. His thumb traced my lower lip. But we had rules, separate cabins, professional distance, no physical intimacy. Rules are meant to be broken. I'm a lawyer, I should know. He laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound I'd never heard from him before. You're going to be the death of me, Simone Evans Volkov. Later that night in my cabin, I stared at the ceiling and tried to remember why I'd agreed to this arrangement. The money, obviously. The career protection, the threat of exposure. But somewhere between Katerina's tests and Victor's grudging respect and Maksim's late-night Russian lessons, I'd stopped performing and started participating. My phone buzzed with an encrypted message from Maksim. Can't sleep. Thinking about that kiss. This was supposed to be business. I typed back, when did it become something else? His response came immediately. The moment you walked into that salon wearing that red robe, looking terrified but refusing to show it. I knew then I was in trouble. We're both in trouble. The best kind. I fell asleep smiling, the ruby ring catching moonlight through the porthole, and didn't dream about escape routes for the first time in 3 months. The call came at 3 a.m. while we were anchored off the Amalfi Coast. Maksim's phone erupted with urgent Russian voices, and he was dressed and gone within minutes, taking Alexei and half the security team. He kissed my forehead before leaving, a gesture that had become routine over the past weeks, and said only, "Business, stay on the yacht, I'll be back soon." Soon turned into 36 hours of radio silence. Reina wouldn't tell me anything except, "He's handling a situation. This is normal, don't worry." But her expression said worry anyway, and the remaining security team moved with heightened alertness that made my lawyer instincts scream danger. When Maksim finally returned, climbing onto the yacht from a speedboat just before dawn, I was waiting on the deck, and immediately understood why Reina had looked worried. His white shirt was soaked with blood. Not spatters, but drenched, like he'd been swimming in it. His knuckles were split and bruised. His face was blank, emotionless, the way I imagined soldiers looked after combat. Behind him, Alexei and 2 other men carried a body bag. "Oh my God. Maksim, what happened? Are you hurt?" "Not my blood." He walked past me toward his cabin, leaving crimson footprints on the white deck. "Don't follow me. I need to clean up." I followed anyway, because 3 months of intimacy had apparently destroyed my sense of self-preservation. His cabin was larger than mine, masculine and sparse, and he was already in the bathroom stripping off the blood-soaked clothes. "Talk to me. Whose blood is that? What happened?" "Mikhail's, my top enforcer. There was a betrayal in the organization. He was the traitor." Maksim's voice was flat, mechanical. "I handled it." "Handled it? You mean you killed him?" "I mean, I did what was necessary to protect my family and my business." He turned on the shower, water running red down the drain. "This is my world. Simone, this is what I do." I stood there watching blood wash away, and the fantasy of the past 3 months, the romantic dinners, the champagne kisses, the late-night conversations, shattered like the crystal glasses we drank from. This wasn't a game. This wasn't a performance. This was real violence committed by a man I'd been falling for. "Have you killed people before? Or was Mikhail the first?" He stepped into the shower, speaking through the glass. "More than I can count. Self-defense, protection of family interests, eliminations of threats. I've been doing this since I was 20 years old. Did you think my tattoos were just decoration? Each one represents something I've done, someone I've killed, a code I live by. I felt sick. I'm a corporate lawyer. I handle contracts and compliance. I can't." "You can't what? Can't be with someone who operates outside your legal boundaries? Then you should have said no 3 months ago." His voice was cold now, the warmth I'd grown used to completely gone. "I never lied to you, Simone. I told you I was a criminal. I told you my world was violent. You chose to ignore it because the yacht was pretty, and the champagne was expensive, and I taught you Russian under the stars. That's not fair. You made me fall for a version of you that wasn't complete. I made you fall for exactly who I am, someone who protects what's his with lethal force when necessary. You just didn't want to see that part." He emerged from the shower, wrapping a towel around his waist, tattoos on full display, stars on his shoulders, highest rank in the Bratva, a cathedral on his chest, years served in Russian prison. Skulls on his arms, each one a kill. "This is who I am. I won't apologize for it. I'm not asking for an apology. I'm asking if you feel anything when you kill people. Remorse, guilt, anything human. I feel what's necessary to survive in my world. Guilt is a luxury for people who live in yours." He moved past me toward his closet, pulling out fresh clothes. "You're not my possession, Simone. You're free to be horrified, free to judge. Free to end this arrangement and go back to Atlanta where lawyers never get blood on their hands." The sarcasm stung because it was accurate. I'd spent years helping my firm's senior partners hide oligarch money, asking no questions, ignoring red flags because my student loans demanded it. I'd judged no one's ethics because mine were already compromised. But witnessing violence directly was different from enabling it through paperwork. I can't do this. I can't be with someone who kills people and feels nothing. Then don't. He was fully dressed now, back in control, the blank expression replaced with cold authority. We have 3 months left on the contract. I'll honor the financial terms. You'll continue playing your role in public, but privately, we're done. Separate cabins, professional distance, exactly what we originally agreed to. That's it? You're just going to shut down? What did you expect? That I'd beg you to accept my darkness? That I'd promise to change? He moved toward the door. I've never hidden who I am from you. If you can't handle the reality, that's your limitation, not mine. Either you accept all of me, or this ends now. He left, and I stood in his cabin, surrounded by the scent of blood being cleaned from expensive surfaces, wondering how I'd convinced myself a man with kill counts tattooed on his arms could ever be anything other than exactly what he'd always claimed to be. Dangerous, brutal, and completely unrepentant about it. 2 weeks of cold silence shattered at 4 a.m. with an explosion that threw me from my bed. The yacht rocked violently, alarms screaming, and through my porthole I saw fire blooming on the upper deck. Before I could process what was happening, my cabin door burst open. Alexei, already bleeding from his shoulder, grabbed my arm. "Get down, Chechens, they're boarding!" He pulled me into the corridor as automatic gunfire erupted above us. "Panic room, now!" "What's happening? Where's Maksim?" "Fighting. Move!" He shoved me forward as another explosion rocked the yacht, sending us sprawling. Through the chaos, I heard Russian shouting, more gunfire, screams cut short. Alexei hauled himself up, blood streaming down his arm, and practically dragged me down a hidden stairwell I'd never seen before. The panic room was reinforced steel disguised as a wine cellar. Alexei pushed me inside, then collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. "You're hit. You need medical attention." "I need you alive more. Boss's orders." He activated a security monitor showing multiple camera feeds from around the yacht. "Watch. Learn what your husband really is." The screens showed carnage, men in black tactical gear swarming the deck, firing at Maksim's security team, bodies already down. And in the center of it all, Maksim, moving with terrifying efficiency, executing attackers with precise shots, his face completely calm. Not panicked, not afraid, just focused, methodical violence. "He's protecting you," Alexei said, watching me watch Maksim kill. "Every man he drops is one less threat to this room. To you." Another camera showed fire spreading from the initial explosion, consuming the upper deck where I'd kissed Maksim under Santorini's stars. Smoke billowed through corridors I'd walked holding his hand. The yacht, our floating prison turned paradise, was dying. "We have to evacuate. The fire's spreading too fast." "Not until boss gives all clear. They want him dead, but they'll settle for hostages." Alexei winced, pressing his hand against his wound. "You're the prize, Simone. American lawyer wife. Perfect leverage. On screen." Maksim moved through smoke toward the main salon where 3 attackers had barricaded. I watched him, the man I'd fallen for, the man whose darkness I couldn't accept, breach the door and eliminate all 3 in under 10 seconds. No hesitation, no mercy. Then his voice crackled through Alexei's radio. "Alexei, status? Package secure. I'm hit but functional. Fire's critical. Get her to the emergency speedboat, east side. Go now." Alexei stood, swaying. "Can you run?" I nodded and we moved through corridors thick with smoke, alarms still screaming, bodies of attackers and defenders alike sprawled across floors I'd walked barefoot on during peaceful mornings. The luxury yacht had become a war zone in minutes. We reached the speedboat just as Maksim and his remaining men arrived. He was covered in soot and blood. Again, not his own, and his eyes found mine immediately and... "You're okay?" "I'm fine. Alexei's hit badly." "I know." He lifted his brother into the speedboat with surprising gentleness, then turned to help me. "Coast Guard's coming. I need you to listen carefully. Another explosion cut him off. The yacht's fuel tanks igniting, the blast wave throwing us into the water. I surfaced choking, searching for Maksim, and found him already swimming toward me. Hold on to me. Don't let go. We clung to debris as the yacht, our home for 4 months, became a fireball lighting up the pre-dawn Mediterranean. Italian Coast Guard and French naval vessels appeared, spotlights sweeping the water, and I realized with sinking dread that rescue meant questions, investigation, authority. They pulled us from the water separately. Maksim went with one vessel, surrounded by armed officers who clearly knew who he was. I went with another, wrapped in emergency blankets, shaking from cold and shock. And waiting in the Coast Guard station was a woman in an Interpol jacket, her expression mixing sympathy and suspicion. Mrs. Volkov, I'm Agent Dubois. We need to talk about your husband's business operations. She sat across from me in the interview room, digital recorder already running. You've been living on that yacht for 4 months, attending meetings with known criminals, present during tonight's attack. You're either a victim who didn't know what she married into, or you're a conspirator helping a known organized crime figure evade international law. She leaned forward, eyes hard. Choose carefully. Because depending on your answer, you're either going home to Atlanta as a witness, or you're facing prosecution as an accomplice to money laundering, arms trafficking, and organized crime. So, tell me, Mrs. Volkov, what exactly do you know about your husband's business? I spent 6 hours in that Interpol interrogation room, repeating the same story until it felt true. I was a corporate lawyer who'd made a drunken mistake in Monaco, married a man I barely knew, and only discovered his criminal connections after the fact. I attended social events, but never business meetings. I saw luxury, but never violence. Until tonight. Agent Dubois didn't believe me, but she couldn't prove otherwise. And when Maksim's lawyers, 3 of them, all impeccably credentialed, arrived with diplomatic immunity paperwork and threats of international incidents, she had no choice but to release me. This isn't over, Mrs. Volkov, she said as I left. We'll be watching you, and when your husband makes a mistake, and he will, we'll be there. Maksim was waiting outside the station, leaning against a black Mercedes with fresh clothes and his characteristic calm, like we hadn't just survived a military-grade attack hours ago. He pulled me into his arms before I could speak. You're safe. That's all that matters. I almost died tonight. We almost died. Your world almost killed us both. But it didn't. We survived. He pulled back to look at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. Simone, I know tonight was terrifying, but... No, stop. I can't do this anymore. I thought I could handle your world. Thought I was strong enough, but I'm not. Tonight proved it. Tonight proved you're exactly strong enough. You didn't panic, you followed Alexei's instructions. You survived. His hands gripped my shoulders. Don't let one attack make you run from what we've built. What we've built? We built a fantasy on a yacht that's now burning wreckage. We built intimacy based on proximity and champagne and pretending the violence wasn't real. But it is real, Maksim. You kill people. Your enemies attack with explosives. Your brother nearly died protecting me. This isn't a life. It's a war zone with nice furniture. It's my life. And I want you in it. Not for the contract, not for the arrangement, for real. He moved closer, voice urgent. I love you, Simone. I didn't mean to. I tried not to. But somewhere between your terrible Russian pronunciation and the way you demolished those Harvard lawyers and how you refused to be intimidated by my mother, I fell in love with you. The admission should have changed everything. Instead, it made leaving harder. I love you too. That's why I have to go. Because loving you means accepting that any day could end like tonight. And I'm not strong enough for that. I'm not built for this world. Then I'll change. Scale back operations, focus on legitimate business, whatever it takes. You can't change who you are, and I don't want you to. You're dangerous and brutal and exactly what your world requires you to be. But I'm a corporate lawyer from Atlanta who gets panic attacks from tonight's violence. We don't work. We never really did. His lawyers had prepared annulment papers. Of course they had. Efficient as always. I signed them in the Mercedes while Maksim watched, jaw tight. Then he pulled out his wallet and handed me a business card with a handwritten number. My private line. If you ever need anything, money, protection, just to talk, call. I'll answer, always. I took the card knowing I'd never use it, knowing that calling would mean sliding back into his orbit, and I'd already decided I couldn't survive there. The flight home to Atlanta felt surreal. I watched the Mediterranean disappear below, replaced by Alps, then Atlantic, then finally American coastline. My phone had 47 messages from Jasmine, my firm asking about my sabbatical, friends wondering where I'd been. I'd have to construct another lie, another story, explain away 4 months and $350,000 and a wedding ring I'd already removed. Jasmine met me at the Atlanta airport, taking one look at my face and pulling me into a hug. You're alive, thank God. I saw the news about a yacht explosion. I survived, barely. But I'm done, Jasmine. I'm out. Good. You're home. You're safe. That's what matters. She grabbed my bag. Let's get you home. But as we drove through familiar Atlanta streets, everything felt wrong. Too quiet. Too safe. Too empty. I'd spent 4 months in chaos and violence and dangerous intimacy, and normal life felt like a costume that no longer fit. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was never just blackmail. Never just business. It was always you. I'll wait as long as it takes. I stared at the message until Jasmine asked if I was okay, then deleted it without responding. Because responding meant hope, and hope meant danger. And I'd already chosen safety. Even if safety felt like dying slowly, instead of living dangerously. 3 months back in Atlanta, and I'd achieved everything I'd wanted before Maksim. Junior partner at the firm, luxury condo in Midtown, student loans paid off, savings account that actually had 6 figures. On paper, I was winning. In reality, I was barely existing. You're doing it again, Jasmine said over lunch at our usual spot, a cafe that felt aggressively normal after Mediterranean yacht life. That thing where you're physically present but mentally somewhere else. I'm here, I'm listening. You're performing listening, there's a difference. She set down her fork. Simone, you've been back 3 months. You made partner last week. Congratulations, by the way. And you looked like you were at a funeral instead of a celebration. What's going on? Nothing. I'm just adjusting. 4 months on a yacht with a Russian mobster doesn't prepare you for corporate law firm politics. 4 months where you were actually alive for the first time since I've known you. Don't think I didn't notice. She leaned forward. You came back different. Sharper, yes, but also hollow, like something vital got left behind in the Mediterranean. My phone buzzed, an encrypted message that made my heart rate spike before I even looked. Alexei recovered fully. Sends his regards. Yacht rebuilt. You're missed. D. I'd been getting these messages weekly. Status updates disguised as casual conversation. Closed the American deal. Investors ask about you. They liked you better than my actual lawyers. And once, late at night. Can't sleep. Can't stop thinking about you. Tell me you're at least happy there. I never responded, but I never blocked the number either. That's him, isn't it? Jasmine had known me too long to miss the tells. Simone, you need to make a choice. Either go back to him or actually move on. This half-life you're living isn't fair to anyone, especially you. I have moved on. I'm partner now. I have a career, a home. You have a performance, just like you performed being his wife. She gentled her voice. Honey, I've been your best friend since undergrad. I've never seen you as alive as you were in those photos from Monaco. Scared, yes. In danger, definitely. But alive in a way you've never been in Atlanta. That's because adrenaline and danger feel like living when you're in them, but they're not sustainable. You can't build a life on chaos. Can you build one on emptiness? Because that's what you're doing here. After lunch, alone in my condo, tastefully decorated, professionally organized, completely soulless, I finally looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked. Designer suit that cost less than one of the dresses Maksim had bought me day. Hair pulled back in a professional bun instead of loose the way he'd liked it. And around my neck, hidden under my collar, the ruby ring on a gold chain. I'd told myself I kept it for financial reasons. It was worth at least $50,000, but I never wore it on my finger anymore. Couldn't bear to explain it to colleagues or dates. Instead, I wore it against my skin, hidden, a secret I carried everywhere. My phone rang. Not a text this time, but an actual call from Maksim's private number. I stared at it for 3 rings before answering. Simone. His voice sent electricity through me. I'm sorry to call. I know you want distance, but I needed to hear your voice. Maksim, is everything okay? Are you safe? I'm fine. Untouched since the attack. Business is thriving. He paused. How are you? Really? I made partner. I know. I may have had someone send flowers to your firm. Anonymously. Did you get them? The massive arrangement of peonies, my favorite, though I'd never told him, that arrived the day of my promotion. I'd assumed they were from a client. That was you. I'm proud of you. You were always brilliant, but now the right people are finally recognizing it. Another pause. I miss you. Every day. The yacht isn't the same without your terrible Russian. Moscow investors keep asking when my beautiful American wife is joining me. I can't come back. You know why. I know you're scared. I know my world terrifies you. But Simone, are you happy there? In your safe life? Because if you are, I'll stop. I'll let you go completely. But if you're as miserable as I am... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't have to. After we hung up, without me answering his implied question, I sat in my empty condo and admitted what I'd been avoiding for 3 months. Jasmine was right. I wasn't living. I was performing life in Atlanta the same way I'd performed being Maksim's wife, except this performance felt like suffocation instead of exhilaration. I had a choice to make. Return to chaos, danger, and a love that terrified me, or accept this safe emptiness as my permanent reality. Neither option felt like living. Both felt like dying in different speeds. The call came at 2 a.m. Atlanta time. Alexei's number flashing on my screen with the kind of urgency that meant nothing good. Simone, you need to come to Moscow. Now. His voice was tight, controlled panic barely contained. Maksim's been shot. Ambush outside a business meeting. Multiple gunshot wounds. He's in surgery now, but they don't know if he'll make it. The words hit like the explosion that had destroyed the yacht. I was moving before I consciously decided, throwing clothes in a bag, booking the first flight to Moscow. 14 hours that felt like 14 years. Is he going to survive? I don't know. He's strong, but... Alexei's voice cracked. He keeps saying your name. Even unconscious, sedated, he's calling for you. Please come. I'm already on my way. The flight was agony. Every minute wondering if Maksim was still alive, if I'd arrived to find him already gone, if the last conversation we'd have would be that phone call 3 months ago where I couldn't tell him I was miserable without him. I clutched the ruby ring, no longer hidden under my collar, but gripped in my fist like a talisman. Jasmine had driven me to the airport, asking no questions, just hugging me hard and saying, "Go get your dangerous man." Moscow's hospital was under heavy security. Bratva members in expensive suits pretending to be family, armed guards at every entrance. And standing outside Maksim's ICU room like a sentinel was Katerina, her face carved from ice. "You left him once," she said in English, blocking my path. "Ran back to your safe American life when things got difficult. Why should we trust you now? Why should we let you near him when you might hurt him again by leaving?" Because I'm here. I flew 14 hours the moment I heard. I left everything in Atlanta, my partnership, my life, everything, to be here. That's the only proof that matters. Words are easy. Actions require courage. Do you have it, Simone? The courage to stay this time? Because if you leave again, it will destroy him. Better he never sees you than have hope crushed twice. Then let me prove it. Let me see him. Katerina studied me for a long moment, then stepped aside. He's been calling for you. Even in coma. Break his heart again and you'll answer to me. Maksim looked smaller in the hospital bed, surrounded by machines and IV lines, his chest wrapped in bandages. His face was pale, bruised, but peaceful. I took his hand, the one without an IV, and felt tears I'd been holding for 14 hours finally break free. I'm here. I'm so sorry I left. I was scared and stupid, and I thought I was choosing survival, but I was just choosing slow death. I pressed my forehead to his hand. Please wake up. Please give me a chance to choose you properly this time. His fingers twitched. Then his eyes opened, confused, unfocused, but finding me. Simone? His voice was rough from intubation. You're here? Not dreaming? I'm here. I'm real. And I'm not leaving again. You left before. Said my world, too dangerous. It is dangerous. It's terrifying, but living without you is worse. I'd rather have 6 dangerous months with you than 60 safe years without you. A weak smile crossed his face. Only 6 months. However long you'll have me. Years. Decades. Whatever we get. His recovery took 3 months, long enough for me to prove I meant it. I stayed in Moscow, learning Russian properly, meeting with Bratva leaders who'd tried to kill Maksim, using my legal skills to negotiate peace treaties between rival factions. Turned out corporate lawyers were useful for more than just compliance. You're like peace ambassador, Victor observed after I'd structured a profit-sharing agreement that satisfied 3 warring families. But with better suits and American directness. The Bratva respects this. Even Katerina softened, eventually teaching me to make proper pelmeni and admitting I had adequate spine for Volkov wife. The vow renewal happened in St. Petersburg's Church of the Savior on spilled blood, a proper Russian Orthodox ceremony conducted entirely in Russian, with me managing the responses without butchering the pronunciation too badly. No drunken mistakes this time. No blackmail or contracts. Just choice. I, Simone, take you, Maksim, knowing exactly who you are. Dangerous, complicated, and mine. 5 years later, I stood on the rebuilt yacht's deck, watching our daughter Anastasia, 3 years old with Maksim's dark eyes and my stubborn chin, practice Russian counting with her father. Odin, dva, trei, she recited carefully, and Maksim beamed with pride that made my heart ache in the best way. Your mama learned Russian on this deck too, he told her, though her pronunciation was terrible at first. Still is sometimes, I added, joining them, but I improved. We split time between Moscow and Atlanta now, running legitimate shipping businesses, mostly legitimate anyway, with enough Bratva connections to stay protected but distant enough to satisfy Interpol's watchful eye. Agent Dubois still checked in quarterly, but without evidence, she'd eventually accepted we were just a complicated international marriage. Remember when you woke up here with no memory and a ring you didn't recognize? Maksim asked, pulling me close while Anastasia played with the yacht's steering wheel under watchful crew supervision. How could I forget? Worst hangover of my life followed by blackmail, coercion, and a completely insane contract. Best drunken decision I ever made. Best sober decision I made was coming back. Choosing you over safety. You chose us over fear. There's a difference. He kissed me, our daughter making exaggerated gagging sounds that made us both laugh. We started with blackmail and lies. We built something true. Through choice, commitment, and stubborn refusal to give up on each other, even when logic said we should. 5 years later, teaching our daughter Russian where our impossible story began, I finally understood. Sometimes the most dangerous choice is the only one worth making. If you loved Simone and Maksim's impossible love story, like this video, subscribe for more dark romance stories, and drop a comment. Telling me, would you have signed that contract? Would you choose dangerous love over safe emptiness? Let me know below. And if you want more Mafia romance, CEO billionaires, arranged marriages, and enemies to lovers stories, hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload. See you in the next story.